In this lesson, we're going to talk about the pathway to mentoring. Maybe you watched that first lesson on mentoring revolution. You're thinking, I kind of want to do that, but there's a part of you that says, I think you might have the wrong guy. You're thinking, I don't think I could mentor anyone for whatever reason. Everyone's got a million excuses, but you might be thinking, I don't think I'm the guy. I don't think you're thinking of me. I don't think Jesus was thinking of me. Well, that's not true. Remember, Jesus chose a bunch of fishermen. He didn't choose a bunch of educated people. No offense, you might be very well educated. But the point is, anyone can mentor and should mentor any person. But what's the pathway? That's what we're going to talk about. Here's the first thing you need to know. If you don't see mentoring as a thing, you'll never do it. When I first started mentoring people, I would go to them. This was really important. I would go to them and say, listen, I want to mentor you. I had to make it clear that it was a thing. And for people in business or in sports, it wasn't that weird sounding to them because they understand what a mentor is. But every once in a while, people would be like, I'm not exactly sure what you mean by that. And you have to explain it. But it's critically important for you to know that mentoring is a thing. And it's called discipleship in the Bible. But it's a thing in the real world too. Talk about it like that. Think about it like that. Mentoring is something that you have to do intentionally. It can't just be something that you sort of fall into. If you really want to do well at mentoring, you've got to think about it as a thing, and you have to commit to the concept of mentoring and to really learning about it. Here's the next thing. The best way to start is by getting a mentor for yourself. You can't do something that you don't really know anything about. The best way to learn about mentoring is to find a mentor and say, hey, listen, it doesn't matter if you're you've been a Christian for 20 years or if you're a brand new Christian. Every single person needs a mentor. I still need mentors. I've been in ministry for years and I still have mentors in my life. So get a mentor, especially if you've never had one. Look at what it says in Hebrews 3. It says, you must warn each other every day while it's still called today, so that none of you will be deceived by sin and hardened against God. See, he's talking about relationships there. Look at what he's saying. Warn each other. He's saying, find people in your life. Surround yourself with people who will talk with you and help you to not be deceived by sin and hardened against God. Now, I think that's a perfect description of mentoring, is gathering one or two people around you that can speak into your life, that you've invited to speak into your life. Say, listen, call me out so I'm not deceived by sin. Mentor me. Help me to pursue God. Help me to know who He is and to live out what He teaches in His Word all the time. And it takes humility. It takes a willingness to submit to somebody else, and that's important. Because if you don't have that willingness to submit to someone else, then I don't think someone should have to submit to you. See, this is what the writer of Hebrews is saying. He's saying, warn each other. This should be just a part of your community. The way you work is we need each other to bear one another's burdens, to help each other out. That's what he's saying. Because when you do that, you can live out your faith genuinely. But listen, don't expect to be perfect. If you wait to be perfect before you start mentoring, trust me, you'll never do it. It's the oldest trick in the book, is for the enemy to make you feel like you're not good enough to help someone else out. That's not true at all. In fact, you'll never be good enough to help someone else out, because Foundations truth number 3 is the only way to grow, the best way to grow is by helping someone out. So you're in trouble if you're going to wait to be perfect to mentor somebody. Let's look at it again. You have to live out your faith genuinely, but don't expect to be perfect. That means you're not going to know every answer or every Bible verse or every concept, or that also means you're not going to, live a life perfectly. You're still going to mess up. You're still going to have sin. You're going to still struggle, and that's okay. Here's the key thing is make sure that you're not living in blatant, unrepentant sin. If there's a sin in your life that you know is not right, is not godly, you need to make sure you confess that to your mentor first. Deal with it so you can move on and start changing the world through mentoring. Now, there's more about this in our lesson resources online, so check that out. If you're interested in learning more about the difference between, unrepentant sin and just plain old sin that shouldn't disqualify you, make sure to check that out. Here's the next thing. Be sure to establish healthy habits so that you're worth following. You've got to be the kind of person that's worth following. Think about what Jesus said when he went to his disciples. He said, come, follow me. He was worth following. Even Paul, later on, he said this in 1 Corinthians 11. He said, and you should imitate me as I imitate Christ. In another translation, it says, follow me as I follow Christ. What a great way to think of it. Listen, Jesus has set the example. I'm following that example, so now you can follow my example. Pretty simple. But be a person worth following. And the way to do that is through good habits. That's a simple word for spiritual disciplines. Make sure that you've got some basic spiritual disciplines at work in your life. The three that we like to talk about are prayer, Bible study, and connection, fellowship with other people, talking about it, having a mentor, having a small group, being a part of the local church. Those things are important. Prayer, Bible study, and connection. If you don't have those three habits, developing in your life, working on those three things in your life, you don't have to be perfect at those things, but working on those habits, if you don't have those, then you're not ready to be followed yet. Make sure you develop some good spiritual disciplines, and then you can say, follow me as I follow Christ. Again, there's more on that in our lesson resources if you want to learn more about spiritual habits and spiritual disciplines. And here's the last thing. Even before you're fully ready, become a mentor. It's really important that you hear that, because if you wait until you feel fully ready, you probably won't ever do it. And if that's where you're going to be, you're going to miss out on the chance to do the greatest thing you could ever do in someone else's life, which is to help them pursue God through mentoring. Look at what Paul said to Timothy, a young man that he mentored. You have heard me teach things that have been confirmed by many reliable witnesses. Now teach these truths to other trustworthy people who will be able to pass them on to others. There's the pathway to mentoring right there. Paul heard about it from someone else. Timothy heard about it from Paul, and Paul is telling Timothy to pass it on to other people as well. And that message isn't just for Timothy, it's for all of us. That's the pathway to mentoring. Now, I encourage you to check out some of those resources to learn more about, how many mentors can you have and how long should a mentoring relationship be? All those nuts and bolts. It's really important. But I encourage you to be ready to get on the pathway to mentoring.